one year the chief of police came to my house and he came knocking at my door and he asked for me by name and I said, yes. And he said, I know what you're doing. I don't have proof, but I want you to leave my town. And I looked at him and I said, yes, sir. And I moved.
All right, let's go, Bobby. We're on Whiskey Wednesdays. It's just a show where we talk about interesting stories from interesting people.
Whiskey Wednesday. That's very interesting in itself.
Let's just start with some whiskey.
Grab my crutch here.
Oh, give you a little bit more. There we go.
Oh boy.
Cheers.
Cheers, my man.
Bobby Dickson.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, man.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm loving this opportunity for sure.
It's pretty sweet. We just started the show. This is our second episode, so we're super glad you're here. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name's Bobby Dickson. I'm 58 years old, and I've come up through the School of Hard Knocks, if you know what I mean. And I'm a product of the 80s, so I'm trying to go back to the 80s, if you can't tell already by my chart-topping haircut there. But yeah, I've just come up through the ranks playing music, and now I do music for a living, basically.
How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, well, seriously into music since about 2000, the year 2000. I was in punk rock bands and gothic bands, and but I just never knew how to take it serious. I wasn't very much into practicing. Well, practicing to learn actual music. I still don't know actual music theory. I just do whatever's in my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I know I tapped that pretty good.
So, what do you play these days?
Well, I do a mixture of original music and a lot of the old Western music that has long been forgotten. A lot of rock and roll classics that, you know, you'll never get a chance to hear them again because, most of the artists are deceased. But I do like Bowie stuff, and I do some Birds stuff, and I love music that really had an impact on my life, and you'll never be able to hear them live again. So I try to do them with a little bit of soul, so you can actually feel the way they were written.
That's awesome. That's like paying tribute to the past.
Yeah,
that's really cool. What would you call your style that you play, like of your originals?
Well, I just got back from Nashville a few months ago, and the Nashville session players there, they looked at this crazy California cowboy, and they called it melancholy Western. So that kind of, I was just like, holy shit, that's it, But I've always been a Johnny Cash fan, and Merle and all those guys, and the band that I had before my band, the Cash Prophets, was a band called the Dead Billies, and we were a gothabilly band, and we were like, I guess we called it Hell Country back then, but we had the opportunity to play with Hank Williams III, Reverend Horton Heat. We played with a lot of middle of the road bands that are very right now they're really sought after because they just had that hell in them, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Could you give us a little taste of what you're playing now?
Well, I could. Let's see. Here's a Danzig song, one of the Danzig songs that he wrote for Johnny Cash, and I'll just do a couple of lines from it. And this is Johnny Cash covering a Danzig song, so that's some good shit right there, if you ask me. Bad luck, wind been blowing at my back. Little out of tune. I was born to bring trouble to wherever I am at. Got the number 13 tattooed on my neck. When the ink starts to itch, then the black will turn to red. I was born in the soul of misery. Never had me a name. They just gave me that number when I was young. They just gave me that number when I was young. You know, just stuff like that, man.
I like that. Even though it's out of tune, that sounds really good.
Yeah, this is my old guitar, 64 Gibson, and got nylon strings on it, so when I press down hard, it pulls them out of tune. So.
Yeah. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Any significance to the name Sue?
Yeah, this is Sue right here. I've got a number of guitars, and they all have girls' names because I am a fan of women. You know, they're one of the best things. When
Yeah.
God said, I'm going to make the world and I'm going to make something good, I'm glad he put women
Yeah.
on that list.
I agree. So, since 2000, you've been playing music. Have you been doing it full time since 2000?
No. I actually was working for a major corporation, which I don't want to name because they pretty much stole a pretty big part of my son's and my life, you know, because we all worked together at the same place when we lived in Santa Barbara. And it got bought out by a major corporation. And so we were sitting at home in Santa Barbara, and we get this letter, and it says, you can either A, move to Folsom and work for this, and you can bring your seniority and you can bring all your, you know, all your benefits over, or you can stay here and be on unemployment. So we're sitting there, and we had already started our Johnny Cash band, the Cash Prophets. And so we had already been playing for like 5 years. We started this. We started that when Johnny Cash was still alive. So we were just really, really good at it because we
Yeah.
were a three-piece and stand-up bass and electric guitar. I mean, we were like the Tennessee Three. And so I just looked at my sons. I was like, it's kind of ironic, you know, Folsom, out of all the places in the world, they want us to move to Folsom, and they'll give us a severance package to move over. So we did. So we all started the Folsom thing. And when we hit here, we hit like it was on fire. I mean, we played Folsom Prison like 4 times behind the walls for the prisoners.
Wow.
We played... we're just really blessed. Everywhere we went, people were like, we want these guys, you know, because we had that sound, that original sound, or the Cash original sound. But it, you know, the job part about it was very, very difficult because it was at that time, you know, they wanted you to almost be anti-American.
Well, it's corporate. It's life-sucking.
Yeah. And so I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to say, you know, I love Jesus Christ, and I love Merry Christmas, and I love everything that makes us American and makes us free. And I didn't know how to denounce that. So I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
So I was always in the office like, hey, so-and-so said that you said this. And I'm like, well, of course I did. You know, I love Jesus. You know, I don't have to denounce mine because you said or whatever. You know, I was just well, as you can tell, I was kind of rebellious. And
That's a good rebellion.
Yeah. I stood up for my rights, and then so one day my wife took me to work, and you know, I just really, really didn't want to be there. had some conflict with this guy that, you know, it was just this guy, and I said, hey, check this out. Why don't you come over to my house? We'll take off our shoes. I'll build a fire. We'll drink some iced tea and talk about our problems, right? Talk about why we can't get along. Because I wanted to get along with him. He turned me in. They wrote me up. They gave me time off. They said it was a terrorist threat. And which was kind of, I mean, I don't know how political you guys want to get into this, but... And
Let me drink a little bit more before we go down that road.
I swear that's all I told him. I said, let's just drink some sweet tea and we'll take off our shoes and sit by the fire and talk about what's this thing between us.
Well, it's clearly a threat.
Yeah. Well, he totally took it to management. Management took me in and gave me a few days off to think about it. And I was just like, so I told my wife I was coming back to work. I said, I just don't want to be here anymore. I'm not happy. And she goes, you're not happy? And I said, no. And she said, get in the car. And I got in the car and we drove away and I never looked back. And I was making like $40 an hour.
Wow.
I had everything.
Yeah.
I had my whole life in front of me. And I was just so unhappy that I walked away and I never looked back. And then I was always doing this in between. So I'd work, 5 days a week, and then I'd work 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, the whole weekend. And she said, do what makes you happy. And then she started managing me, and boy, did it take off. It was like everybody wanted me. And so I was doing solo stuff and band stuff. Our band was just on fire. And I started doing solo stuff more and more. And then when my wife passed away, my whole life shifted again, because I was like, I don't know if I can do this and sustain, be able to pay my rent and everything. And so I just caught fire. I just had to. I had to make ends meet. So I had to watch every penny and play my gigs and sell myself to all these people, and it worked. It worked. So now I don't even, this month has been a hard month for me, but I don't really have to hustle anymore, because people are calling me, vineyards, and they're like, hey. And so I do my calendar just right so I can make that god-awful amount of rent that I need to pay every month.
Yeah, out here in California?
Yes. And so that's what I'm doing,
That's really cool. So you successfully left the 9-to-5 and have been successful chasing the dream?
Yeah. And that's been going on for, almost 10 years.
Would you say that success is a dollar value or a happiness value?
Oh, my happiness value. This is the only thing that makes me happy, is this. It's the only thing that makes me feel even halfway a human being. Because
Wow.
when I'm not playing, I'm just sitting in front of mindless TV with the cat and playing this sometimes, and just Canadian horror movies that are just freaking ridiculous. But it's just something that's back there, and I haven't really moved yet since my wife passed. So it's like, and she's given me hints to do it. She gave me a hint to get in my truck during the pandemic and play. And so I would drive around in my old 33 Dodge and play out of the back of it with my generator, and just play to the masses that couldn't come outside or wouldn't come outside.
Yeah.
So I'd play cul-de-sac shows and park shows, and just off of tips, and it was really, really successful.
You just grinded your way through that.
I did.
That's
I played
awesome.
almost 300
That's really...
shows in just 1 year.
Wow.
Just Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, and always had a show. Just with my truck, people would, I would pull out here on Main Street and start playing, and tips only and make bank.
Wow.
And people were just like so happy that somebody was doing that, because everybody was afraid. You remember the fear?
Yeah, I remember.
Oh man, it was pretty crazy. And
But you found a way to keep going.
I did, and
I bet you wouldn't trade it at all to go back to that 9 to 5.
Yeah, you can. If they said, "Come back, we'll give you everything and a raise and all this," I still wouldn't go back, because I'm not that kind of person that likes to be pushed into submission. Pushed into doing something that I'm really not comfortable with, and it seems like corporate does that a lot.
I'd agree. I haven't worked there, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
Watched it, heard enough stories.
Yeah. And without putting anybody down, it's just not my cup of tea. That's not me. And
Well, when you got your own dream that you want to chase,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to sit there every day knowing that you're giving 8+ hours a day to somebody else's dream when yours is back at home waiting for you to pick it up and get out and start playing.
Yep, and them stepping on your head to get to the top.
Yeah.
There is no top in corporate.
So you made a comment off camera that you went from drugs to Gibsons. Could you kind of unpack that a little bit for us of what you were talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, younger, I always smoked whatever resembled marijuana, I guess, in those years. So anything that was green, I guess we were trying to smoke it. But as I got older, I dropped out of high school, out of 12th grade. I had like 16 credits to go, and I was just watching all my friends that were high school graduates and college graduates working at Taco Bell and frying chicken and all this stuff, and I was just like, man, I had an opportunity. One of my mom's boyfriends, he worked in the oil fields in Bakersfield, and he said, and I was the kid always f***ing up, and my mom said, take him. And I was like, yeah, take me. And so I went to the oil fields and I lied my way in, used my mom's social security number, and started working in the oil fields. So I worked in the oil fields for like 25 years, helping build this country. I worked for Exxon, Texaco, Arco. I worked for all these people as a construction worker, welders. I had welders and front-end loaders and backhoes and pipe fitters and all under me. And I'm reading these blueprints. I came up pretty fast, but I also started dealing drugs heavily, because my welder was like, he's from one of the major distributors across the border over there. But anyway, I started dealing drugs pretty heavily, and so my philosophy was never become the dope that you're peddling. And so for me, that meant don't do just sell it. So I started dabbling a little bit in it, but I never became a full-blown junkie. I became a money junkie.
You got addicted to that green?
Yeah, that money.
Different kind of green, not the smoking
Yes.
kind?
Right, the money. And so I'm living in this town, and I'm dealing like, and see, I would never keep my product in my house or around my house. I would, since I knew the oil field so well, I would have maps of these oil fields, and I would put it in tissue paper and roll it up and say, yours is under this pumping unit, by the start button, and they would just wire the money, and I'd give them a map to where they could find that amount.
Wow.
Which crazy shit. Am I incriminating myself here? But anyway, I did that for like 15 years. And one year the chief of police came to my house, and he came knocking at my door, and he asked for me by name, and I said, yes. And he said, I know what you're doing. I don't have proof, but I want you to leave my town. And I looked at him and I said, yes, sir. And I moved.
Out of fear or?
No, I didn't want to go to prison. You know.
A little bit of fear?
A little bit of fear, but also a lot of brain.
Yeah.
I knew when I
realized you reached the end of your rope.
I did, and I wasn't gonna sacrifice my girlfriend, which I should have. No, but I wasn't gonna get anybody in trouble. I wasn't gonna whistle blow. I wasn't gonna get anybody in trouble. I had done what I needed and wanted to do, and the hardest thing to stop was the money. So I just started working in electronics and music, and so I just totally stopped that. I mean, totally stopped the buds and everything, you know?
Yeah.
And I believe that this whole path that I'm on is for a reason, you know, and it's to teach other people and to let them know, you know, don't give up on your dreams no matter where you're from, you know?
So what, you 16, 17 years old, lie your way into the oil fields, do that for another...
I did it for 25 years.
So then did you jump into corporate after that?
I actually did a lot of stuff in between that. I did some iron work, high-rise iron work, because I was really good with balance and I could walk the beams.
Yeah.
And did some asbestos removal, like around these parts here. And it's kind of ironic that here I am back in this town that when my whole life was shifting, I'm now living like a few miles down the road from these places where we totally encapsulated the whole place. And which was, we basically, a building like this, we'd turn it into a big Ziploc bag 2 times over. So you'd get rid of all the dust and fibers and all of that, and then you'd roll that up, and then you'd have another clean bag, and you'd have to shower in and out of the rooms because it's asbestos. It'll kill you. So I did that for about 10 years.
Wow.
And then worked for Del Monte and Woodland and got fired from there. And then I moved back home to Santa Barbara and started playing music. My uncles always played. My grandfather played. And I was just never interested until I stopped for a minute to reevaluate everything. Like, hey, man, you know, because I used to love the way my uncle sang, and so just one day, I don't know what happened. Something clicked, and I got a guitar, and my wife and I, we were self-taught. You know, we just Casio keyboard. You know, we just start playing along to it, and then we built this band that was pretty damn good. It was all right.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's the same band that came up to Folsom with you?
No, that was the Dead Billies was that band. I mean, we toured with the Cramps, and I mean, we toured with some pretty good heavy hitting bands. But when my wife and I got a divorce, my sons and I were sitting at home. We're like, oh God, I'm bored to tears, right? And so we did an open mic night in Santa Barbara, and they're like, well, what do you want to play? And I was, you know, instead of playing the songs that we wrote about killing and dying and all that, I said, let's just do some Johnny Cash songs, simple, you know, darn, 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 you know, all that stuff. And when we did it, it just went off. Everybody was like, holy what is this? Right? Because I was blessed with a voice that I could sound like Johnny Cash if I really, really, really wanted to. I could be like spot on. And so one son playing stand-up bass and the other one playing a Telecaster guitar, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just do that. And then so I just got this notebook together that had all his songs, and we started just trucking nonstop.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they're my sons, so
some more quality time with your kids.
Right?
That's great.
All those blessings were, and we still play together, so they're still with me.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm also a fellow believer, so I got to ask, did you have that, like, wall that you hit when you met Jesus? Or did you know him your whole life? And
I knew him my whole life.
So what was that like with dealing drugs and kind of going through everything you went through before you kind of jumped back on a better path?
I think it was okay because he was never there to judge me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always knew that there was, I've been in car accidents that had taken people's lives, and I'd been in just really, I would push myself. I was like really an adrenaline junkie, and I would push myself into these almost death-defying acts, and he had so many chances to take me and never took one.
It's a lot of grace.
Yeah. So I know there's something. I mean, I didn't really think that I'd live to see 18, 21, 23, 25. I mean, up the whole thing because I was so reckless. And here I am at 58, going on 59, going, holy shit, is your heart going to give out? But God's always been with me in Jesus. And we were baptized Mormon when I was 13, when my father left my mom. And, all the religions that you could even think about, I mean, they take care of their own. They take care of my mom and my family. That's perfect. That's golden.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't believe that you have to be any denomination to have God. I don't think you have to give your money to any God because our God's already rich, And so I try to tell my mom that. I'm like, Mom, I can't afford tithings and all this stuff. I need the money. My landlord obviously needs the money. It's amazing his power. And I told her, I said, I even wrote a song for her because she's like, oh, Bobby, your tattoos and you always sing about the devil and you always sing about this. And I'm like, Mom, I sing about God too. I mean, they're just not similar, but they're, everybody walks the path of good and evil, everyone. And it's that line that you could even accidentally fall into that one. If you got in a drunk drive-in and you took a family on their way from church,
Yeah.
You'd never be forgiven, but you could be as innocent as a f***ing lamb and make that mistake that could hurt somebody for life. So it's, and so I wrote my song, He Walks With Me, and I said, Mom, he always has. I mean, I'm here, that's proof,
Yeah. So out of all these jobs that you've done, you've kind of lived this crazy life, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Seems like you finally have landed on the career and the job that you feel that you've always kind of been destined to do. Does that still kind of make you happy knowing you, even though it took a while to find, you found it and made it your ultimate decision to do full time?
This is the happiest I've ever been in my life because I can do anything with this. I can fly. I can go outside right now and take off and fly around and check out all the traffic in a song. And if you make it believable enough, you take people with you. That's key.
Yeah. Yeah, music's very impactful, and I think it's got a lot of power to it. Any crazy shows you've played?
I've played a lot of crazy shows.
Any thing that stands out on a tour or a show or anything that you've done that you're like, yep, that's a top 5?
I played with Chris Christopherson. I played with Anita Carter. I've had Johnny Cash's daughter come up to me and say, nobody plays my daddy's music like you do.
Wow.
I mean, that's
gotta feel good.
Yeah. To me, those are the things. I'm not rich in monetary, at all, but my heart is just, whoa. I mean, I'm pretty happy.
Can you give us a taste of a Johnny Cash song?
Oh, man. Let's see.
Or is that putting you on the spot too much?
At my door the leaves are falling. A cold wild wind will come. Sweethearts walk by together, and I still miss someone. That up. I go out on a party and look for a little fun, but I find a darkened corner, 'cause I still miss someone. Though I never got over those blue eyes, I see them everywhere. I miss those arms that held me when all the love was there. I wonder if she's sorry for leaving what we had begun. There's someone for me somewhere, and I still miss someone. Though I never got over those blue eyes, I see them everywhere. I miss those arms that held me when all the love was there. I wonder if she's sorry for leaving what we had begun. There's someone for me somewhere, and I still miss someone. I still miss someone. Yeah.
That was great.
Thank you.
Well, I say we end it right there.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Bobby, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Joining us on Whiskey Wednesdays.
Heck yeah.